Welcome back to TWTL's BOTT coverage. Today we're going to do a combination recap and preview. I wasn't able to get the preview recorded last night. I was able to go out and spend some time with some attendees and gauge their reaction to last night's service. And let me start off by saying that last night's service was amazing. From the opener to the closing prayer service that took place, God's Spirit was just moving mightily in the audience. People were speaking in tongues multiple times. If you followed along on our live blog, I said it was like hearing the voice of many waters. It was like having a water, being at the base of a waterfall as it just kept cascading down when people would pray in tongues and everything. And just the presence of God was so real and so rich. I wasn't even in the actual sanctuary, and you could feel and experience that as it flowed out from there. Because God's presence is everywhere. But it's just, that's one of the things that is just amazing about Because of the Times, is just being in that concentrated presence of God, the way that it just flows, the way that God just flows in that meeting. It's powerful. You might be able to hear some rain outside. I'm driving around as I do this podcast and this recap preview. Brother Bernard's message on being filled with the Spirit was both timely and encouraging. I mean, he basically said we can face every challenge that we're facing when we face the opposition of a secular world, when we face challenges as our communities diversify, trying to reach that ever growing and ever diversifying community. God's going to be there, right there with us, to help reach that ever-changing community if we will allow God to continually fill us with His Spirit. He also talked about the challenge of staying unified and staying together through trials and tribulations. We've got to stick together. It was kind of an echo of last year's the Stones message, which I mentioned in the preview, of how we work better when we're together. We're a greater unit. We're a greater force when we're unified. And so his message on being filled with the Spirit, constantly making sure you're not running dry, constantly making sure that you're relying on God through everything. That doesn't mean we don't have to put the work in. That doesn't mean that we don't have to do our part. But if we're doing our part with God's Spirit continually filling us, then we'll be better able to reach our communities and better able to serve God and have greater and more fulfilled relationships with God. And we're going to be a better unified body. It was a really encouraging message, and he talked about what being filled looks like. He talked about how it's if we're filled with the Spirit, we're going to worship, and we're going to pray, and we're going to uplift, and we're going to be thankful, and we're going to have a mindset and a passion for God and for others that that you can't find from any other substance or any other pursuit, only through the pursuit of God's Spirit consistently filling us. So it was a really encouraging message, and then Pastor just knocked it out of the park. He had given this message to the POA, but he adapted it for Because of the Times, the voice we heard, and he gave stories about his own life of where he's heard God's voice speak to him about how to do things, when to do things, when to not do things, and it was really encouraging hearing an open and honest account of his own life. He gave accounts of his father's life, and how his dad let the Spirit and the voice of God lead him. He gave examples from the Bible as well. Moses, when he saw the burning bush, he turned towards it, and by turning towards the burning bush, he came into the presence of God and was able to hear the voice of God call him to his purpose. And God's going to show us and give us signs that will allow us to seek after Him, to follow after Him. And if we'll turn away from our everyday, mundane, regular just living. Moses was tending sheep. He was doing a good job. He was helping his family out, and he was making a living. But he saw something from God that could only have been God, and he went and pursued after it. And that's what we have to do. Sometimes we're going to have to break away from the regular and the mundane and even the good pursuits of life to get to the greater things that God has for us. And when we get into that communication with God and He starts speaking to us, it's going to lead us to a place of humility. Moses was told to take his shoes off because he was on holy ground. God's going to ask us to take some things off to humble ourselves before Him. There's some things. Maybe there's some pride in our lives. Maybe there's some anxiety or some fear or some worry. Those might not seem like things that we need to cast off so we can be more humble before God. But fear can sometimes prevent us from humbling ourselves, because when we're afraid, we don't want to make ourselves vulnerable. When we're anxious, it means we don't want to step out and do something different. Obviously, pride will try and keep us from being humble. But God's asking us to get to a place of humility so that He can speak to us on a deeper level. And when He does that, He'll reveal to us what His plan is and what His purpose is for our lives. He said a lot more stuff on Moses, but I wanted to move on to Isaiah. Isaiah said, "Here am I, send me." He was ready to be sent. And when we're ready to be sent by God and we get into communication with God, God sees a willing heart, and He's going to give us understanding and inspiration that others may not have access to. When we truly give up for God and pursue Him with a whole heart, Isaiah was given inspirational thoughts about Jesus Christ hundreds of years before Jesus Christ was even born. And God's going to give you things, and these were scriptures that were a comfort to the Israelites at the time, and they spoke to the Israelites later down the road. So God's going to give you something that can be a comfort for today, but is going to be an inspiration for tomorrow when you open yourself up to Him. And likewise with Daniel, when he talked about Daniel, how Daniel went on a fast, how Daniel, when he wanted to hear from God and get close to God, he sacrificed. And we have to sacrifice sometimes to hear the voice of God. God sent an angel to Daniel that instructed him and gave him understanding. That understanding helped keep Israel in their time of trouble. That understanding helped guide Israel back to their homeland. And it speaks to us even to this day, some of the things that were given to Daniel as a result of that sacrifice and being open to hearing the voice of God. And that's what's going to happen for us. It's going to be something that will keep us in our trials. It'll be something that will guide us to where God wants us to be and go and grow. And it's going to be something that will be for the next generation as well. God's not just looking to benefit just us on our own, but He's looking to benefit those that are coming down the road from us. It's just a powerful message, and I mean, that's just abbreviated what Pastor spoke about. It's worth getting the DVD on, or the CD on, or the download on. But also, just the moves of God that happened throughout the service. Man, many times people just broke out in prayer. Like I said, it was like the voice of many waters. There was tongues and interpretation. There was prophetic words being given. After Pastor's message was done, I mean, there was probably close to 30 minutes of just people coming up and praying over the body in there. Different ministers and everything coming over and speaking words over and praying. The move of God that took place in that room last night was just powerful and anointing. And to have been in the building when it was happening was amazing. But it's something that you're going to want to get a CD of or a DVD of so that you can experience it as well, because God can still move through a DVD. He can still move through a CD. If you want to read some more of this recap of what happened last night, you can go over to our recap at twtlministries.com/compass. I'll put a link in the description of the video as well to help you get there. As far as what's going on today, we have Sister Vesta coming up. We also have Brother Terry Shock and Reverend Wayne Huntley speaking. They're all great speakers. They're all consistent speakers because of the time. Sister Vesta always has a great message on loving souls and reaching for souls. Reverend Terry Shock has always a great and insightful thought on Christian living. And then Wayne Huntley is just a down-to-earth speaker. So I'm excited to hear what each and every one of them have. I'll have a detailed recap audio for you at the end of it. But I'm excited to take in. It's going to be a lot of drinking from the well today, because these are some deep-minded people, some spiritually minded people, and they always give thoughts that just blow you away. So I'm going to do my best to keep up on the live blog. You can keep up with that at twtlministries.com/compass. We'll let you know when we're going live. But you can also just refresh the page as we go along, because we're going to be trying to refresh it about every 15 minutes. There'll be updates on what's being said and what's occurring. We're not just talking about what's coming over the pulpit. We're talking about the experiences that are happening within that sanctuary, because that's just as important as what's being spoken, is what's occurring. So we hope you join us. We'll be back. The next session starts at about 9:30. We'll try and get the live blog going as soon as possible at the beginning. So with that in mind, I'm Chris Ferris. This is TWTL Ministries. God bless and keep searching.